a lot of people don't have a setup at their house, and this is kind of how to get you going. I put the news right up, you know, mostly it's kind of beginner based, but it's probably even more than that, really. So I'm excited to see it. Next month's presentation is going to be by our very own Mike Sanders. I asked him to do that next month. It is going to be about the Blanchard mining claims, which we're going to be going down to dig at in November. That's kind of why we're setting that up. It's from the 2013 presentation that he put together, and you guys, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of, some of us that have been here a while have seen it. You probably haven't done it, what, 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, to the club, yeah, probably
Right.
so.
So definitely be here for that, and I'm going to turn over to Moses. Here you go.
Right. Can everybody hear me in the back? What? Good, okay, yeah, you don't count. All right, my presentation this evening is going to be, like Brandon said, basically geared towards the beginners, not understanding exactly what it is. There's a lot of people in here have been doing this for a lot of years, so they have a whole lot more experience than I'd ever thought of having. So just to let you know right now, I don't know everything, far from it. I know enough to satisfy curiosity and pique people's interest. And that's my goal tonight, is I want people to see something different or understand where to go for it. So I've got a whole shebang full of stuff up here to show, because some of it is kind of unique, but you don't just walk out and find this stuff. You have to go out and look for the oddities, or maybe a little corner of something that's got some color to it, or maybe a design to it. And then if you've got a tool, you can cut that, open it up, and then you can see a pretty in it, some beautiful stuff, because I've been wowed by quite a bit. And believe it or not, I've only been doing this less than 9 years. So with what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to show a few pictures. We're not going to be watching videos, but I've got some screenshots of YouTube locations you go to for homemade lapidary. So when you go to look for this stuff on YouTube, look up homemade lapidary, and you'll be surprised what you see if you haven't already. It'll show you how to do the tools, you know, how to manipulate the pieces on it, how to build them some, and a lot of this stuff can just be found at the hardware store, or pick it up from your garage, or maybe even inside for some of it. You know, some of the pans to make it with. So you need to just see how things are put together. So with this, I'm going to start. I've got 4 pictures to show before we get started with machines, because for some reason my computer, it categorizes things for me when I put it on there. Google does that. So I can take a picture of it, and because it says, oh, that looks like food, it's going to throw it off in some other category somewhere. So I have a hard time finding it, and because of that, it did not let me lock in the pictures. So I'm going to go through the pictures, and then I may have to jump back and forth a little bit. So just bear with me, because it's not going to be in no kind of real order. This picture here is a chunk of fluorite here. Now, this is from the 21 mine, and when you go out looking for this stuff, people say fluorite over in the Zuni Mountains. Well, they're looking for the blue and the green stuff that I've got up here, like this big old massive chunk here. This is green. So this stuff gets overlooked. It's white, it's nasty, crusted over. This big piece I have, you can see on the bottom side of it, it's nasty looking. But it's even worse than this when you go out in the field to pick it up. So I've seen people step on this, kick it, just walk completely over it because they don't know what to do with it, have no idea what it is. So if you get something like this, this has been cleaned up, and it illuminates very well. Put a little brighter light in it here. And if you put this in a dark room, it makes for a nice ambiance. Back porch light or something like that. Get you a nice little LED something to put under it. So that's what can be done with this stuff. Now, that's this piece here. So you can see just how nasty it was when it was found originally. And that's just wet to so you can see a little bit. Okay. This was a nodule come from the Nake mine. This piece here. It was round, nothing outstanding with it. It was showing absolutely no color on the outside except a little bit of black from the barite that was down there. But when I took it home, it kept nagging on me. So I stepped back over and picked it up after seeing people step on it. So when it cut it open, it showed, I don't know if you can see here, but look at it later. Nice, beautiful purple in it. And there's no attachment anywhere. It's like it's free floating in water or space. So what I'm saying is I want people to be enthused about this. Go out, look for the oddities, pick them up, try to get you a tool and cut this stuff so you can see what's on the inside of it. Because I've got some more up here that looks like nothing until you cut it, and then it's just, wow, look at that. So it is available out there. That's that nodule there. Now this is a piece of wood here, another piece that just was nothing. And it's up here, and I think I've got a picture later on with this. Now this was just a piece of petrified wood. One of our members told me here within the last few months, try something with this. And I wished I'd have known this like 10 years ago, because I could have been doing it, even though I've only been in it 8 years. Some of this petrified wood I've come across, it brings this out, this process. So when I cut this, it was black, just like that. Okay, nothing to it, little spots showing that it was maybe some palm wood or something at one time. So when I put this in a strong solution of bleach water, is what I was told to do. Soaked it for a week, and then this design, I don't know who can see this or not, but like I said, look at it later. It brought out all kind of design to it. It's very interesting when I saw that. So now I've got to polish it and see if that's just surface, what it's going to be. But I know it really put a wow factor to it after doing that. So the other thing is, don't be afraid to speak to the older people in here. Older meaning that they've been in the club and they have the experience and the knowledge. Ask, eavesdrop on conversations when we're in here. Because if it's private, you shouldn't be saying it in here. This should be about, right, so I mean, this should be about stuff you can share in here. So like I said, eavesdrop on conversations. You may pick up on something or may perk an interest in you, like, oh, excuse me, you know, what was that again? These people are willing to pass on the knowledge, because if they don't, it goes away with them. That's why I'm open to anything and everything. Someone's got a question, or tell me, and if I can help you, I will. So please ask questions and listen. Think outside the box for a lot of this stuff too. You will find a lot of great information out there. Where to go, what to do, things of that sort. Let me see here. Wrong way. Okay. These are some pieces of fluorite that came from the 21 mine. These were out of the tailings pile up on the very top. Now, of course, these did not look like this when they were found. But you take these home, you clean them up, and most of these are only done up to a 600 grit on a flat lap machine. And I always take the piece and I will follow the breakage on it, you know, the flatness of it. So I will just basically do it like facets on there, just to enhance it. And then this is what you get. All these were taken wet, of course, so you can see that, because they're not polished. But you can get these colors up there. All kinds of crazy stuff can be found. Now, some of these were just encrusted, just like this. These other big pieces I have, you can't see anything on them. So once you clean them, it just pops out. Okay, now to get into some machines. Of course, everybody knows the commercial machines. This is saw here. That's your big normal saws. This is called a flat lap machine. And that means you're using the disc across here. This whole face is embedded with grit. diamonds or whatever else that, you know, you want to get. So you just work your piece right on the face of it. Yeah, you don't have to work it all the way around. As you see on some of these tools, some of them are covered up. So you're only using the piece in a very small portion of that, maybe half that, maybe a quarter of that. So you're moving it around, you're letting it eat it down to get smooth, and then once you get it to the point you want, then you go on to the next grit. So you change out your disc. These are some more machines. On the left here, you have a little trim saw, probably a 6-inch. In the middle, you have another type of flat lap machine. And then you have a tumbler. And then you have your little pot here for heating up your glues or whatever you're going to put on your dopping sticks for holding it for grinding. That's all that is. But just commercial machine, just showing. This is a flat lap machine. I have one identical to that up here. It may be a different brand name on it, but this is a commercial machine. This is like $400 when I looked it up the other day. That one works real good. That one looks like it's got a 6-inch disc on it, so you can change that out up to an 8-inch, fill that whole area up. So you do that, like I said, you just work the piece. You can use it for edge cutting, grinding, shaping, depending on what grit disc you have on there. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So you just sit there and drip the water on it, water tank up above, below, I mean it's behind the black spot up there, you'll see on here. So you drip it on, then you just work it. And then you go on to the next piece. And you can get that up to 3,000 grit or higher, depending on what disc you put on there. And then it goes to putting the shine. You always go from the coarse grit to the finer stuff, because that's what you want to do. You want to eliminate the scratches in it to where it gets a mirror finish on it. All right, this is another type of saw. This type of saw I've seen come in a bandsaw like this, but this has a regular flat blade on it, but it has diamond grit shows up on the leading edge of it. So it cuts, just like all saw blades do, on the leading edge of it. That's a flexible blade, and those of you who know what a bandsaw is, this blade just runs continually around there. That has the diamond grit impregnated on it, and so you can cut with that. That's not used for cutting big thick chunks because it'll take forever. That's made for cutting thin pieces so you can whack it out really quick. This machine I have also seen, or this style, come in a round blade. It's like a rod, but it's flexible. It goes all the way around. And it has the grit embedded all the way around it. Very expensive blades for these things. But with that one, some of them I've seen, you can take it into different directions. You don't have to just keep going in. There was some kind of a mechanism on there kept the blade from popping out off the track. And that's due to the roller setup and stuff that's in there. That's more to get into. They were not cheap machines though. Okay, this is a combination unit here. On the left here you have a saw, trim saw, or regular cutoff saw, and those come in different sizes. 4-inch up to 6-inch, 10-inch, depending on what size and how much you want to spend. With that, you've also got wheels on here. You can have the normal rock wheels on here, or you can change that out and you can put in the diamond wheels. It's a steel wheel, plastic hub or whatever, but it has a diamond face on it. Some of them have a flexible face on them, depending on what you're cutting and what you're doing. So when you push against it, it does flex in a little bit. There's a lot of different ways to go with this. And then you have a buffer on the right side. Various types of buffers on there, from leather pads to wool pads to sheep, there's just all kinds of stuff to put on there, depending on what you're doing, personal preference. These machines, some of these are very old, back to the 60s, 70s, stuff like that, but they're very good quality machines, because the only thing to wear out on them are the stone wheels and the bearings and the belt. Maybe the motor burn out eventually. But this is probably a cast aluminum unit, so it lasts indefinitely unless you destroy it, beating on it, dropping it, things like that. These are still sold today, but they do come in various setups. Here's a multi-wheel unit here. Motor driven from the back on the left, and then you've got all the different grits on here from fine to coarse. So you don't have to keep changing things out. If you can afford one or build one that's got all these wheels on it, then you just go from one to the other. Now all these machines use water. You must have water to use them. Water cuts down on the friction. It keeps it cool, because if you don't cool this stuff off, it will fracture. It will give you a dull finish on it. There's lots of things that can go wrong. It keeps the dust down. The dust I'll get into here in a little bit. See, here is a new modern machine. Same thing as that silver one, just a modern setup. Some of these have their own drive system to them. You can clamp it up for the saw, and it's got its own feed system, so you can walk off and leave it. You don't need to sit there and do stuff with it. The smaller saws are trim saws for cutting little things, cutting thin pieces. You can whack through them real quick. If it's got a clamp system on the side of it, then you put it in there, and it sets, its own pace, goes in there, and then it cuts nice and smooth. But like I said, this is a modern machine, 2 steel wheels in there, different grits on it, and the buffing wheel on the side. Okay, now we're going to get into the good old boy redneck ingenuity stuff. Yeah, well, once you look on YouTube, you'll look at it like, gee whiz, these people, they must have been drinking a lot of beer doing that. All right, whether it's homemade stuff or store-bought stuff, commercial operations, remember one thing. All these machines do the same operation. They cut, they grind, they tumble. No matter which one you get, they're all doing the same basic principle process. This person here used a treadmill because of variable speed. As you can see, he built a frame around here to keep the jugs from going into each other. You can use whatever you want that's round that will tumble. Now, some of this stuff, of course, is going to wear out because the material that's being tumbled is going to cut it and scratch it all to pieces. So it will wear out prematurely. But this is a pretty good idea. Like I said, redneck stuff. Get out there, do it. So you put this stuff in there, it tumbles around, but there's something you need to be aware of. And I've got a sign up here. These round drums are slick on the inside. So if you put material in there, that drum may be turning, but your material may just be sliding up the side like this. A drum needs an agitator in it. It needs corners in it. Something like that will take the material and grab it and flip it over. It has to turn. It can't just sit in the same position and just wish-wash back and forth. It has to turn, flip over, so that grit will wash around it and wear it down. So if they don't have that, it's going to be a long time to work. See, here's something else. You can use a tire. So where did I put my paper at? Okay. So in this, let me see here. What is rock tumbling? The idea is to move the material around so the grit or media wears away the rock to reveal the beauty inside. No matter which one you do, this is a multi-step process that takes time, from a few days to several weeks in between each step. Each step, like I said, it takes time. So do not get in a hurry with this. You'll be upset with yourself. You may have up to 5 or 6 steps to finish the rock, depending on what you're tumbling and what you want it to look like. So it's an ongoing thing. That's why I say do not get in a hurry with this. So with this tire, on the video you will see, and down on the bottom of some of these, I don't know why it's so fuzzy, but I've got the website or the YouTube site on some of these to where you can go in and you can look that up. If not, just ask me and I'll send you some pictures of it, email it to you, whatever. But this one works okay. The stuff does tumble because it does have some little ribs on the inside just from the strings that the tire is made out of.
grabbing the wrong one.
See, here's a piece of PVC pipe. This one is being driven by a drill, an electric drill, handheld drill in the back. It's put in the vise to hold it so it doesn't flip-flop all over the place. Okay, this will work eventually. Drill is kind of loud. It's got a lot of torque to it, so it's not really made for this kind of stuff, but it does work. The vise is going to hold it in position. It's going to wear that plastic out a little bit over time. Once again, got to have the agitation in there to flip the rocks over. I've not seen that in any of these. No marks on the outside from screws or anything like that. So you've got to secure that strip in there, at least one strip, to do that agitation, or it's just going to go on forever. Okay, this is a flat lap machine, just like this one up here, just like the other ones that I showed you. Flat lap machine used water dripping down on the wheel towards the center. Centrifugal force will sling the water out to the edge. Keep your piece cool, keep the dust down. This actually is made with a chopper or mixer type thing. That you've got where this drum is, it's got the drive underneath, but it's like a handheld mixer. You do that, and so they rig this up. It's got the water tank above it and stuff, but that's what that is, a mixer. Like a Sunbeam mixer or something like that, you could use that. Like I said, these old boys had a lot of time to think of all this. Right. This guy here is actually selling these units. He's making them, he's changed it up 3 or 4 times, but it's all the same operation. It's a flat lap machine. He's using a flower pipe, Home Depot, Lowe's, to cover up the motor, keep it dry, mounted on a board. He has a shaft going up through the center of it to drive your disc on. That goes up through a bowl or basin of some sort that you put on top of it. You mount that on there, screws, glue, an external frame, whatever you need to put on it. So, like I said, this is just part of it. So you would have a bowl going across the top of it. I've seen people use the big rubber food bowls that you get from like Tractor Supply because they never wear out. They're flexible, so if you put your arm on it, you can rest it. It may distort it a little bit, but it's okay. Using something like this, making a flat lap, you need to put a drain in it, or you have to pick it up and dump it periodically when the water gets filled up in it. And then you have to worry about putting a sleeve up underneath it to keep the shaft from having water run down on top of your motor. And you'll understand once you see some of this stuff, and they've thought of all kinds of crazy ideas with this. So here's another one. They put it in some kind of a box, motor drive from up underneath, and then it goes up to, it looked like a baking pan for cornbread or cake or something like that. Wasn't very big. Secure that down, and like I said, that's because that piece up there, you can't really see it. So they did that same thing as the other one. It comes up through the pan. You've got your disc on there, and I've got disc I can show you up here what they are, what they amount to. So they put that on there, and then they just work it. Drip your water on it, and it works great. The thing is, when you make something like this, you do not need a lot of speed with it. Excuse me. The average speed would be like 1,500 to 1,750 is all that's really required. Because you get it too fast, you're slinging your water from centrifugal force, so then you have to flood it, and then you're washing away maybe some of the grit that you may need to help do some polishing and cutting. So a motor, 1750 RPM, would work real good. If you need to change it up from that to go even slower, you can change it up if it's a belt drive unit from the motor to the spindle going up. You can change that up with pulley adjustment, and that will change all that up. Or you can do like I do, cheat a little bit, and you can get a motor controller that will go in line for your power cord. This will control the speed of certain motors really well. I actually put that on my pressure washer. I've got a 2,000 PSI pressure washer, and instead of using that to blast everything when I get it home, I'll put that on there and cut it down maybe 1,000 PSI or 1,200 PSI. That way I can clean it. And I'm not blasting as much or any pieces out into space. So those are real good. That was only like 15, 20 bucks. That works real good. So you put that on some of these motors, depending on what type motor is used to drive it, and it'll slow it down instead of changing the pulleys. Now, all these are just ideas to show you it can be achieved. If you don't have the money, you don't want to spend the money. You may be a tinkerer and get out there in the shop and play with something like, wow, it works. You know, I'm really proud of that. You know, got something of my own. And then you can show it around and drink beer and whatever, you know. These discs can be used in multiple configurations. It can be a flat lap, meaning flat, but it can still be used in a vertical position, or it can even be angled to where that is, you know, like a 45. It's all doing the same thing. You've got to have a catch basin to catch the water underneath it. You've got to have your disc recessed back below the lip of this. Otherwise, you're going to get stuff slinging out all over the place, no matter what position it's in. So make sure your disc is sitting down below the edge of it, and that way it slings in and runs out. It's not coating you, coating the walls or the machine. See, here's another one somebody used with a metal bucket. Same setup, it's driven from underneath. They've got a very rough framework for it. A table, some good old boy welding, but it's made with a metal bucket. Their piece, their disc is recessed halfway down in there, but they cut a notch out to work it with their hands. Okay, you can do that. It'll catch everything, goes on out, no problem. But you've got to make sure to line that edge so you don't cut your arms up. Now, if any of these look really interesting to you, speak up and tell me, I'll back up. So if you must have a picture of it or something, we can do that. This is another one. Same thing, the bowl, you know, it slings around, the water will either run out the front, or you can see this hole here for your drain line. Same configuration. Water is dripping into the center, centrifugal force, slinging it out. Now this is a rock tumbler. This is a homemade system. This particular machine, the guy said, will handle 5 of these big drums. This looks like it's 12-inch diameter PVC pipe. And he has made everything for this, all the rims, the lids for it, top and bottom, and he has silicone everything together. Hot glue, something like that. So one side can be taken off, and he never did show the inside, but I'm sure there's some kind of an agitator in there to help turn the stuff. Big old machine, you can put a lot of stuff in there. I think he said each one will hold like 100 pounds. Wow. So that's a lot. And you can put some big old chunks in there, fist size or whatever. This particular site, this guy had purchased a lot of equipment from someone. I think he's up in Canada, close to it. But he purchased a big homemade collection like this. And he said some of it worked good. Some of it he hasn't gotten to yet. But it looked pretty good as far as the ideas. See, this is another homemade setup here. This one is mounted onto a bench, never to be used. This looked like a baking pan of some sort. Once again, driven from the bottom. He's got his water tank here. That's just a normal maybe a 1 or 2 gallon pitcher that's up above it for gravity feeding. So this runs over, you got a valve on the end of it for a drip, drip, drip on there. Water gets slung out and it drains on off through the bottom. This particular one was set up, because this is another one he purchased, as you can see back behind it, for doing faceting. So that one has to be pretty decent. You know, he got the arm on it for doing the faceting. Okay, getting into blades. disc, let me back up for a second. The disc for cutting on flat laps, you'll see in the light and on there. These discs have grit embedded across the face of them. That's made for face working, flat pieces shaping. Saw blades. There's basically 3 types of saw blades. There's a notched rim here. Each of these blades has got diamond grit on the outside perimeter of it. Sometimes it's a little bit, sometimes it's wide, maybe up to 1/2 inch. And the thickness that